Hey y'all, I'm back with my third Traveler's Notebook process video, and I'm going to be working in my foodie little journal here. And I got this Traveler's Notebook insert from Studio Calico. I got it probably in February maybe, and so I'm going to be using that. The first thing I'm going to do is adhere a piece of scrap paper to my to the right side of my page, and I found that when I rounded it with my corner rounder at 1/4 of an inch, it fit perfectly on these pages. So if you have the Studio Calico Traveler's Notebook, and I'm not sure what the other ones are like, but if you have the Studio Calico one and you want your scrap paper or your paper to cover the page and kind of even round too. You can use scissors, but I just found that the corner rounder worked perfect, and it was the We Are Memory Keepers one with one side has 1/4 of an inch and the other side has 1/2 of an inch. So I'm going to be documenting some uh, food that I made for a party that we had, and really I'm documenting more about the party than I'm about the food, but just the food on the right side are some snapshots off of Pinterest that I saved so that I could save the recipe so that I could make the recipe later on that week. And so ended up using those photos because I didn't take photos of my real food that I made that night, and it probably didn't look that good either. And so right now I'm looking through some of my kits that I have. So I do subscribe to the Ali Edwards um, story kits and then also the story stamp. And so a lot of the things that I'm using are from those kits. And then some things are from the Hip Kit Club kits as well. So right now I'm just kind of trying to figure out what I want to use. Do I want to, layer up behind my photo? And I did find this neutral wood grain with some crosses on it. And so I'm just backing that one photo up with that particular paper, and then I'm going to back this other photo up with kind of a mint greenish aqua color. So now I'm going to go ahead and adhere those two photos, and I'm going to layer one on top of the other just a little bit because the picture itself isn't really, I guess I shouldn't say it isn't the focus because it sort of is, but I think more so the journaling and what I talk about what I made, but I also talk about the party that we had too. And so, and because the photos aren't mine anyway. So now I have another sheet of paper, and I had the idea of stamping out the word eat, and then I'm going to cut it out so that I can place it right on top or right in between the two photos. And the reason I'm going to cut it out is because if I just cut it like rectangular, then I feel like it's going to cover up the majority of the two photos or a pretty big space. And so I kind of want it to just like rest inside the two photos, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, and then I will adhere that down. So right when I adhere that down, I go straight to adhering down my vellum journaling, and I realized that I was adding a piece of journaling that actually didn't belong with this page, and so I'm going to chop that off, and then I'm going to go back to adhering it. And then I do really like to print on vellum. The only thing is, as it was coming out of the printer, it smudged some of the words, and so I'm not really sure if I have the right type of vellum or if it's just the printer that I was using or what. Otherwise, it looked really good, and I liked the way that it looked, and I think I'll do that more often. Okay, so I'm going back to my stamp set from the story kit, I think it was, or the story stamp Eat, or I don't think it was, I know it was. And I pulled one from there that said Yum, but I set it aside because I think I'm going to try to find something else that I might use. I looked through a little tray of embellishments and I didn't really see anything that I wanted to use. And so I ended up pulling these stickers from Tim Holtz. I think I got them at Michael's in Hobby Lobby. Maybe I got them both at Michael's. I have two different sticker books, and they're both from Tim Holtz, and they have lots of little tiny words, and so in their typewriter font. So I thought that would go well with this particular page. Plus, they're backed on white, and so they do pop off the page pretty well. So I ended up adding a couple of little words, and then now I'm kind of thinking that I want to go back to the stamp, and I will stamp out Yum a couple of times. I think I'm not really sure where I wanted it, but I end up liking it there at the right hand corner. So at this point, I'm liking the way that it's looking. And one thing I really like about the traveler's notebooks is or the inserts are that you can keep them pretty simple. And so, like I said, I'm liking the way that's looking so far. And at this point, I'm trying to find something else that I may want to use on the left hand side of the page. And I did find a little chipboard piece. I think probably I popped it out without the adhesive on the back. So I just added some glue, and then I'll stick that right onto the left side of the page. And I like the pop of yellow that it gives the layout. I'm also going to take this little fork, knife, and spoon stamp. It's a circular stamp, and I'm going to find some scratch paper, and I'm just going to simply stamp it in as one of my Kelly Purkey inks, and then I'll punch that out. You've probably heard me mention this before, but I do not like fussy cutting at all. I'm surprised that I even did that with the word eat. But when you have circle punches, it really does make that a lot easier. And so here at this point, I realized that I maybe wanted to try a different color pink. And so I'm going between a Kelly Purkey ink, but also a Hero Arts ink. But Hero Arts manufactures her inks anyway. And so I think they have the same formula. So I'm just going to use my circle punch just to punch that out. And I think that's an inch punch, if I'm not mistaken. And then I want to add that as just a little embellishment to the top right-hand corner. And then I think I'm going to be wrapping it up. I'm going to add a little documented label, and then I'll put the date. And then that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this process, and I will check with you guys later. Bye.